What's going on, everyone? We hope you had a nice, relaxing weekend and are ready for an exciting week in the market ahead. Nvidia, the biggest company in the world, is set to report earnings this week. There are a handful of stocks on the radar like Netflix, SMCI, and others. The crypto side of the market is still going crazy, and there is a lot to talk about. In today's video, we're going to cover the most important news, information, earnings, events, big money trades, and everything you have to know for the market for this week. And Tom, we're not going to waste any time, so let's jump right into it.
Yeah, I can't believe it here on the heat map. 64% of the stocks in the S&P 500 were down in the red. And this is also pretty bad whenever we look at the heat map too. We're not just saying, oh yeah, it was a couple financial stocks or energy stocks here. The big bad tech stocks fell off pretty hard on Friday. There is some good excitement though in the crypto sector, but we definitely have to hit on these big tech stocks here because it's very detrimental and it's very crucial for the overall market. What these stocks do. Like you said, Nvidia is actually the biggest stock in the entire world by market cap, which is awesome, and they're going to be reporting earnings this week, so that's going to be huge on Wednesday in after hours. But I just want to talk about this tech sell-off here. You know, we go to the daily chart of Nvidia, it's starting to turn over pretty hard. We're actually right around key support also at the 140 mark, which was a previous peak on this one in the past. So this is going to be a big level here. Are we going to hold 140, or is this sell-off going to continue this week? I think we'll sell off, but I think it might take a day or two of consolidation.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly a very interesting and a very exciting move that we're seeing in the market right now. And like you said, Nvidia is not the only company that's moving in a major way. There are a lot of big tech stocks out there, whether it be Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, or others that are not only moving in a crazy way, but they're also moving to the downside. And as we know, the biggest, baddest tech stocks are so important to watch because they have so much of an influence on what the overall market does, where if we look at SPY over the past couple of days, the price action certainly isn't too calming.
Yeah, definitely not. On Friday, I couldn't believe the sell-off that we saw with SPY as like that 590 support started to break, and it really started to move down there in a big way, right down to 585, and that move away from that $600 mark is definitely catching people's attention. We've talked about that $600 area acting as potential resistance, right? We don't know if it's going to hold up, but we see that right now we're starting to see good rejection off of it. And I know a lot of traders started to look for that downwards move on Thursday and even hit really well on that downwards move from Friday. And guess what else this is affecting? It's the VIX. The VIX ended up popping up a ton on Friday, 12.8%. Maybe we'll be at $20 on the VIX again here soon. I know it just had that crazy gap down a couple of days ago, or just last week, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and what this ultimately shows is that volatility is increasing, which is a great thing for traders, because while we're seeing big moves right now, that's really all you can ask for. As a trader, you have to be willing to adjust and flow with the trend changes, because big moves are what ultimately present the opportunity out there. When you just have the market chopping around and doing nothing, that's when the market sucks. When you're seeing big moves in either direction is when things really get exciting for multiple reasons. So we're definitely going to talk more about this as the video goes on. But like you said, Tom, Wednesday will be a very important day because Nvidia will report earnings after the bell. But we can see there are even a handful of other pretty exciting tickers on the lineup.
Yeah, there are. Walmart on Tuesday, a workhorse. A lot of people have been looking at them in the short term. We call it donkey horse out here in StockedUp. Shout out to Cornish there. Lowe's on Tuesday as well. We have a funny one. Powell, the man, the myth, the legend, reports on Tuesday and after hours. No, I'm kidding though. It's not anything to do with the with Jerome Powell, but nonetheless, it's a funny one to see on there. Wednesday though is really the big day. There's a lot of fun stocks here. NIO, Target, ZIM, TJX. Then in after hours, besides Nvidia, we have Snowflake, PANW, Jack in the Box. That's kind of a funny one too, but Wednesday's going to be the big day. I think Snowflake is even a very interesting one here. Of course, everyone's going to be watching Nvidia, but Snowflake has some pretty crazy moves on earnings, and they gap up and down pretty often on here.
It's going to be a fun week, Tom. No doubt about that. But like another thing that has been like so hot lately is everything crypto related. Of course, when you look at the price of Bitcoin, it is still flying. But even if you look at some of the other cryptos like Doge or Ripple, which is XRP, or many other areas of the market, there's a lot of action, a lot of attention, and a lot of just pure strength and momentum. So everything crypto related will certainly be on watch this week. Of course, some of the hottest like stocks for this are like, maybe companies like Coinbase or MSTR, which have certainly been moving in a momentum-driven way and have been having big moves. So let's certainly keep those on the radar. And it seems like the crypto market has certainly been like one of the most momentum-driven sides of the market for at least like the past month.
Yeah, it definitely has. And I think that that's really the big winner here with the elections, right? Everybody talks about crypto and they talk about all the different cryptos out there, right? But I think that right now we're just seeing a good macroeconomic effect coming from the election, right? We're seeing a lot of positivity. I've actually had people asking me about Bitcoin and Doge and Shiba Inu and all those crazy coins, right? I've had a lot of people asking me about them lately, people who normally never ask me questions about things like this. And it's one of those things where we're just seeing so much positivity and the reach is really getting out there. So definitely start to look into some of these, at least in the short term, maybe some of these coins. And, it might not be something that like you see as a good investment, but there's definitely tradable opportunities coming from this. And I really think it's just that election win just causing so much positivity here because, of course, Trump wants to make America like the crypto capital of the world.
When you have giant events like we're seeing with the crypto side of things right now, where there's just a lot of attention and momentum and just pure movement with them, it's important to understand that like almost always we see giant moves from that, but they're not always just straight up for forever and ever and ever. There are going to certainly be periods of time where there are harsh pullbacks and strong trend changes around or along the way. So it's important to position yourself to benefit from those rather than just being married to one direction or another. But certainly keep the crypto side of the market very close on watch. But like even some other hot stocks in the short term, like Palantir, are still moving in an absolutely insane way. Palantir again on Friday up 11% off the NASDAQ listing news. I mean, Tom, I have this. I love Palantir for the long term, but like this short term movement is insane.
I couldn't believe that move Friday. It was so exponential, and that 11% run got us through that recent high, even around that $63 to $64 mark, and the momentum really came in, and even in after hours, it kept going up even into the night. So it was really awesome for Palantir last week, and I'm definitely going to keep looking at it to the upside for short-term opportunities. It's one of my plays actually for later, so we'll definitely be talking about it a little bit more. But in the short term, it's just also it's important to be very careful with stocks like this. As we can see, it will run and continue for quite a few days sometimes, but there can be those exponential moves to the downside as well, and those pullbacks that come in can be pretty nasty and wipe out people because of the way options are priced too. So just keep that in mind, but nonetheless, the short-term upside action in the short term is great, and who knows, we might be at $70 here soon.
Yep. Another side of the market that has a lot of eyeballs and attention with it is Netflix. It was a pretty big weekend for Netflix with the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight, and I don't know. Netflix certainly didn't have the best weekend, but not the worst either. What's going on here, Tom?
Yeah, I think you put it pretty nicely there, Mike. They definitely had a big problem on their hands here with this fight, but let's just start off with some positives, right? Okay, this was a huge event, one of the biggest events ever, obviously, for Netflix. There was 60 million households watching this fight. Now, imagine 60 million people. Their servers couldn't handle it. So they had a lot of issues where people were getting kicked back to the main screen. They were stuck on loading screens for a long time, and some people couldn't even really watch the fight correctly. So they're obviously getting a lot of backlash, and people are really pissed at Netflix for this, and I think that it has potential to hurt them in the future, because let's say that we own the NFL, and we're thinking maybe one day there could be a Super Bowl, or just open up your mind a little bit. There could be a lot of scenarios where people might want to stream on Netflix, Netflix, and now they're like, well, hey, now I'm not because these servers keep messing up for them. So it's interesting, and it was actually so bad that Antonio Brown streamed it on X and had 6.4 million people watching his, I guess, like illegal stream there on X. I'm like, man, is someone gonna sue that guy? But but I'm also just laughing at these memes, Mike. This is a pretty hilarious situation for Netflix, but it's pretty big for the stock though.
No doubt. So, like, looking at Netflix stock for the week, it'll certainly be one worth keeping on the radar. Netflix is at all-time highs right now, and the stock is at like $825 a share, and it certainly has been moving in a strong way, but it'll be very exciting to see how the stock reacts to this weekend's event, because when Netflix does move, it tends to move in like a pretty strong momentum-driven way.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's been uptrending really well in the short term, and sometimes when it hits these big resistances, it can fall down a little bit. And in the short term, we're starting to see other tech stocks sell off too. Like we go to Microsoft, we go to Nvidia. A lot of these stocks started pulling back last week, and even the heat map is pretty crazy. 64% in the red. That's a pretty big number there. So, I'm looking at the tech stocks in general, Mike, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of negativity coming out of this streaming thing with Netflix from the weekend, and I think that we'll see a pretty decent gap down actually come Monday morning, and some potential, selling pressure here to trade off of. So it's definitely going to be on my radar. I'm going to have $800 in mind if it does start to sell off more in the short term as like a big support coming up, and of course we can look at the lows from Friday as well, right around that 817 mark where it bounced a couple of times.
Yeah, so definitely keep Netflix close on the radar, and especially that $800 level, because that will be a key point, especially due to it being like a psychological support level. So Netflix is definitely close on the radar. But another thing that we have to talk about is the situation that's going on with ticker symbol SMCI. This company has been an absolute disaster over the past year, and essentially it is now getting to the point where, because of their delayed annual report filing, let alone potential signs of accounting manipulation, this company is just like spiraling out of control. They're on the verge of getting delisted in the coming days, and they essentially plan to file their delayed report by Monday, which is when the deadline is for them to file this by. But we are at the point now where SMCI is getting destroyed so badly that the stock is moving in a way that is more volatile than almost anything else. And what's kind of scary is that when you go to like an options chart of this one, where you could see the implied volatility of this stock, the options are getting so expensive for SMCI where basically whatever direction you try to trade this off of will just be a giant trap. So we kind of just want to give like a little bit of like a broad warning here with SMCI. Watch out. These options are ridiculously expensive, and if you trade them without doing your research, you can get burned. So we just want to give this little warning here because like in situations like this, they're dangerous. So watch out, everyone.
The November 22nd expiration, 469% on the IV. Oh my gosh. I mean, I thought DJT took the cake, Mike, but I think SMCI is now the leader for the crazy IV on the options chain there. But nonetheless, SMCI is definitely having a lot of issues. I can't believe how many issues they're having, and just be very careful. A lot of people right now are saying, oh, I'm going to buy up the dip. I'm going to buy up the dip with SMCI, and just be aware. There's a lot of company-specific problems going on with this one, and whenever I hear accounting manipulation, I generally try to stay away.
Good idea. All right, well, let's take a deeper look at SPY right now because there is a lot going on with there too. Tom, what are the key levels and analysis we should pay attention to heading into the SPY for this week?
Yeah, that was a huge drop out of the SPY last week. It actually got right back down to the key 585 support. So we're going to be eyeing up that support very, very closely. You can see over the past few weeks how volatile SPY has been. Because of the election, it had that nice run up a couple weeks ago, and now we're starting to pull back to that same point. So I'm watching this 585 support very, very closely. There's actually been a few hits off of this 585 level. You can see here on the left side of your screen, if I go to a longer term chart, how many like true hits this area really has had before. So definitely watch this area as support. For resistance, the main resistance overhead is going to be 590. I am watching 588 coming up as well. And of course, we have all the levels that we talked about from last week, like 592, 594, 595 and 599 overhead. But I think that the main thing is watching this support, because if this support starts to give out, I think that we could maybe start to fill the gap, so to say, from that election move.
All right, yeah, it's definitely worth keeping on the radar because, we are seeing a broader increase in volatility as a whole right now, which just makes for bigger, stronger moves in both directions. So, key levels like you pointed out are certainly worth keeping on the radar because as the market moves in a crazier and crazier way, we're going to see, of course, bigger moves, but, some serious opportunities alongside that. So good stuff there, and we will definitely keep that on the radar. What's pretty good this week, Tom, is that the economic schedule is pretty clear, so we should have some uninterrupted price action.
Yeah, exactly. On Tuesday, we do have something coming out with the building permits, but that's pretty much it for this week. So, as you can see, it's a pretty slow week on that side of things. A couple weeks from now, we'll have the FOMC minutes and then some personal income data coming up there around Thanksgiving. So we'll definitely keep you guys updated whenever that time comes. But I'm glad, Mike, because now we can focus on some of these sell-offs and some of the better price action, like you said. And judging by that price action Friday, there should be no shortage of fun this week.
No doubt. All right, well, let's get right to it then. A stock that is certainly on my radar is UVXY, and it is to the upside. UVXY is an ETF that essentially moves up when fear is building in the market and the market's just getting more volatile. It was up 10.5% on Friday as we saw some selling pressure come into play. If we continue to see this sort of price action develop and more profit taking spread across the market, UVXY can certainly move up in a major way. Most of the time, this fades lower because, one, the market just tends to go up a lot more than it falls, but also because UVXY is like a leveraged play and it has a what we'll call decay to it. Long story short, most of the time UVXY chops and fades lower, but every now and then when it does pop higher, it moves in a way that is more explosive than most other things. Its most recent major run up was over a 200% move in just a couple weeks. So that gives you an idea of how crazy this ETF really is. Either way, UVXY is definitely on my bullish radar for the next couple weeks, where if we see more profit taking come into play, it can present a nice bearish opportunity.
Yeah, I like it, Mike, and it's going to be one that I'm definitely looking for in the short term, too. UVXY, whenever it moves, it gets those insane runs when the market does drop. So I'll definitely have it on the short-term radar. With my first setup, I'm looking at Netflix, NFLX to the downside. I know that we just talked about this one a lot, so I won't bore you guys covering it too much, but I will be watching that 817 support. If we're able to see a good sell-off under there, I'm definitely watching them back down. If we gap down under that in pre-market, some big levels to keep in mind, it might be $810. That's a nice whole dollar level that is also coming up under this 817 to 815 area. So that's what I'm looking for. And the main thing with Netflix is going to see that big negative reaction. We have to see some good momentum here.
Sounds good. All right, another setup on the radar is Meta, and it is to the downside. This is a big tech stock that is certainly starting to roll over. Not only does it have major resistance right around $600 a share that the stock has defended insanely strongly multiple times, we are also seeing selling pressure in the market build up, especially with big tech stocks, and Meta is one of those stocks that is leading the way as it fell by 4% on Friday alone. Meta is definitely on my bearish radar, not only for tomorrow, but even over the next couple weeks, and Meta is also one of those stocks that tends to move in a pretty strong, good way, so it's definitely on my bearish radar.
Yeah, there's been a lot of sell-offs at that $600 level you mentioned. That is definitely a huge resistance, and I'll keep watching it down lower off of that level. So with my next setup, I'm looking at Palantir to the upside, right? Palantir just keeps going. I will be wary of it. Obviously, it's getting overextended, but whenever you get intraday moves like what we saw on Friday, there is just no shortage of awesome movement on these breakouts. So I'm really watching 66.50 if it's able to break that, and then maybe $67 if it breaks 66.50 in pre-market. I'll keep watching for more momentum as it breaks the high of day, and that's something I really have loved during this Palantir run. If we go to a 15 15-minute chart, a lot of times, like when these recent highs get broken, we do see a pretty good move come in.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, definitely keep Palantir on the radar as well. And besides that, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Affirm to the upside.
Yeah, Affirm killed it Friday. If they're able to break out above that high of day right around 57.80, then keep watching them up.
All right, with the next one, we have WFC also to the upside.
Yeah, Wells Fargo killed it on Friday as well. Some of the banks did pretty decent. If they can break 74.50, I'll be watching WFC up.
All right, and then with the last one, we have Disney for both directions.
Disney's getting pretty wild in the short term. That was a pretty good run it had on Friday, being up 5.4%. But if we end up seeing it break this 115, and more specifically 115.20 high from Friday, I'll be looking at a good continuation of the upside. If we do end up seeing a good pullback and it ends up pulling back under 113, then I'll watch it back down.
All right, so we have both directions for Disney. So for these momentum plays, keep them on watch for potential breaks and then continuations of momentum. So for example, we have Disney with both directions, while we have WFC and Affirm to the upside. Basically, if we see breaks through these levels, we are looking for continuations in that direction, where the stronger and more consistent these stocks move, the better the opportunities become. If they don't break the levels listed, then don't feel the need to force the setups. So definitely keep them on the radar. And let's jump right into today's $838,000 big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol WBA, of all companies, right? Walgreens, WBA has been a crazy moving stock, not only over the past year, but even over the past couple of years. And I say that mainly in a bad way. This stock has basically fallen from $100 a share all the way down to $8.50, and it looks like the big money is getting bullish here, buying this dip. The big money bought the $2.50 strike call options for January 15th of 2027's expiration, and they put around $838,000 into this trade. The reward to risk is certainly there here, but understand that this is definitely like a little bit of a risky setup given the nature of Walgreens fundamentally right now. This is a good-sized trade, and it certainly has a lot of time to it. But what I would say is ultimately more important than anything else here is that if you decide to follow this big money trade, you have to be not even just willing, but you have to be happy to give this setup the time it needs. These options have a ton of time to them, and it'll certainly be an interesting setup.
The $2.50 strike calls. I'm waiting for the comments tonight on this one. People are going to be like, what? That is so far away. Why would they do that, right? It's really far in the money. It's a lot safer for them. Plus, there's a lot of time to this. Like Mike said, it's out to 2027, guys. So keep that in mind with WBA. WBA is not a company that I like to touch very often, especially with how much it's been selling off. The sell-off has been so massive the past couple of years, it's actually like hard to chart this stock. That's how much it's been moving down. But if it does find some good support, this stock does have good moves back though. Like that decent pop back, or that recent pop back off support was a nice 34% runner. That's what happens when these stocks get a little volatile and they're also $8 a share like this. You can catch some pretty good moves. So I'll definitely be eyeing this up, Mike. And I will say, let's say that you're a longer term player of WBA and you want to hold this for the long term, it might not be bad to average into this one over the next month or so if it does keep falling.
All right, yeah, so definitely keep this on the radar. This is like a longer-term setup, and scaling in is definitely, something that can work to your benefit. And like Tom certainly reiterated, they got the $2.50 strike call options, which means that they're definitely getting pretty bullish on this one, because these are actually the deepest in the money, longest expiration call options that are even able to be bought for this stock. So definitely keep this one on the radar going forward. But before we move on, we want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Victor G, in the Stocked Up Discord. He had an awesome post on Friday, and even if we scroll up a little bit more, we could see he said, thanks Stocked Up for all the help and getting my confidence back, and he showed a great week of trading. So huge shout out to you, Victor. Keep up the great work going going forward, and it's awesome having you in the community. It's great to see posts like this one. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for the week ahead. There's a lot going on in the market right now. Lots of action in multiple different directions. The big boy Nvidia is set to report earnings on Wednesday, so it will definitely be an exciting week. But there's just a lot of crazy movement and exciting action overall right now. If you guys haven't already, consider obliterating that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. And besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market this week.